We're live.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Delusions of Grandeur. I am one of your hosts, but tonight we are continuing showing off one of our main crew's choices in films, and to help us figure out what kind he's interested in. So, Jake, why don't you tell us a little bit about the film that we are going to be discussing tonight?
All right. So tonight's selection is going to be we have a twofer tonight of films that have two threads in common. One, as I have said, of all through the month. This is Filmmaker February, where I am celebrating some of my favorite filmmakers. And for those of you, our regular listeners, I almost say viewers, listeners, who have been paying attention, you know that my birthday pick comes in late February, and it has pretty much always involved the Coen brothers. And this is our fourth Coen selection to fall in February, a little film called Hail Caesar. But this was also tonight's twofer, though. We've also got a film by Wes Anderson, The Grand Budapest Hotel.
And
they haven't. What's that?
And it's also 2.
It is 2. I lost track of how many twos there were.
You missed the two.
It's definitely an interesting date. That's for sure. And actually, I did not even realize that when I planned to do a definitive twofer. I just like doing them, and well, that worked out nicely, didn't it? But the twofer in question is that one very acclaimed Oscar-nominated actor, Ray Fine, has never been nominated for a comedic performance. And yet, I feel that these two films showcase his comedic side at its best. I think the role in Hail Caesar is kind of short, but it's great. It's a scene-stealing role. And he pretty much carries The Grand Budapest Hotel. And not an Oscar nod. Even that one was up for like 10 Oscars. And there wasn't one for him for actor. So it's like crazy. But anyway, so that's the connecting thread there above and beyond Filmmaker February. But to get back to it, Hail Caesar is a film from early 2016. It is, like I said, a Coen Brothers film. It was actually their last film released primarily to theaters, may be their last since Ethan supposedly has retired. They did The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which went straight to Netflix. So this was their last big theatrical hurrah. And it is a love letter to the cinema of the 50s. It is a very Coen-ish love letter. So it's interesting. And so the brief rundown on IMDb is a Hollywood fixer in the 1950s works to keep the studio stars in line. And that's actually a pretty good summation. A little simple, but very good summation of the main plot thread, which centers around Josh Brolin and his character Eddie Mannix, who, pretty much has to keep everyone in line. And so, speaking of marshaling diverse and sometimes unruly talent, it's time to release it to everyone in turn to give their first impressions. So I'm going to start just moving to my left. Kroll, is this your first time with this film, and what were your thoughts on it?
It is the first time. Well, I thought I was gonna really love it. I liked it. So that's good. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would.
It's a plus after last week.
Yes, I agree. The cast is really awesome. Pretty much really loved all the cast. So like I said, I thought I was gonna really love it. Sounded really funny. Sounded like something I'd like. Like I said, I did like it. Didn't like it quite as much as I thought I would, but I did like it. So that's good. And I mean, it had a good cast. Everyone did their job. It's kind of weird. I don't know. I don't know how to describe the movie. It wasn't. The flow was just kind of weird. I think best way to describe it. Didn't quite flow correctly. There was definitely some funny scenes, but it wasn't like I was laughing like every minute or anything. Definitely had to think a little bit, which is fine. But yeah, overall I enjoyed it, and definitely glad it wasn't like last week, because stuff like that make me want to quit this. No offense, but.
Well, like I said, we appreciate your willingness to take chances.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, like I said, I like to find a gem, and definitely I had never seen this movie or the next one we couldn't do, and so find something that I normally wouldn't watch, and that's the whole point of me coming on here. One of the points, anyways. So that's my first impression.
Good deal. And kind of weird definitely is a frequent first impression for the Coens. I'm reminded of the moment in Fargo. Actually, it was like kind of funny looking. How so? Just in general sort of way. But anyway, Tammy, how about you? Is this your first time with this movie, and what are your initial thoughts?
Yes, I agreed, kind of different, kind of weird. It's definitely, I don't consider it as it was. I guess it was listed as a comedy musical. I don't really consider it, just because there was a couple musical areas, but to me, you need more than that to make a musical. But yeah, I like Clooney. I've liked him on other things before, so that was definitely something that interests me about seeing the movie to begin with. But yeah, it was definitely a different. You kind of, I liked Mannix as the fixer, though. I thought that kind of reminded me of like a gangster. So, but I enjoyed it.
Good deal. And I'm still curious. Brandon had told me that Dave said that it was listed as a musical, and I'm wondering who said it was a musical. That's what I'm curious about.
I mean, there was a couple songs in it, but
yeah, I mean, there are some musical numbers, but we'll get to those in turn. And there is one original song in the film, actually, which is a rarity for a Coen film, but it does happen. So that's kind of fun. And it is funny that you say Mannix was kind of gangster-like, because he's loosely based on a real character. And the real character...
If you just Google Hail Caesar, it'll come up with Hail Caesar, and then it'll say comedy/musical. So Google says it.
So Google... Google... Well, we know Google is always right. It's the internet.
Yeah.
But anyway, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, the real Eddie Mannix supposedly was more gangster-like, and he was played by Bob Hoskins in Hollywoodland. And my vague recollection was that was definitely a more hard-nosed character in that one. But at any rate, so yeah, Forrest, is this your first time with the film, and what are your thoughts on it?
This is my second time watching it. With the Coens, I'm a fan. I think honestly, I've said this before. Probably I don't know if I've ever said it on the show before, but I always say this about them is that like they can, everything they do, they can do no wrong. Even their worst movies are still very good. And this is
I agree.
This is no exception to that. Great very very stacked cast. It's very and with the Coen brothers, I expect have a lot. Expect there to be a lot of good quirky humor. I always liked the. I think they're really good at writing dialogue. In here, for example. Also, I was kind of surprised to see Dolph Lundgren in this movie, because he's someone that you usually associate with B movies and cheesy 80s action flicks, not the Coen brothers. I like I love movies about making movies, and I'm sorry, I'm need to get my composure here, but yeah, I love movie. I also I love, like I said, I love movies about making movies, and I think this is one of the best ones. Again, great cast, great production. Again, great some great costumes, sets, especially for such a moderately budgeted movie. And the cast is solid. Very just a very very funny movie, and I think it definitely deserves a little more. Although compared to, say, Fargo or No Country for Old Men, I do find this movie relatively underrated. And I think it's definitely in the upper echelon of their filmography. But again, it's like their worst movies are still good. So it's kind of it's hard to say what's their best and what's their worst.
Well, I think there's a pretty clear best and worst, but yeah, everyone's got their own kick, and we've covered their best, which was Oh Brother Where Art Thou, or at least in my book, that is their, and I would say pretty solidly The Lady Killers was their weakest. But again, The Lady Killers was still a fun movie, and it had some great stuff going for it. So it's some good times. And Dave, this your first time with this film, and your thoughts?
As far as seeing it all the way through, yes, it is a first time. I saw bits and pieces of it while Tammy had actually watched it. She doesn't remember watching it, and she definitely doesn't remember asking me to keep an eye out for it. But I remember doing that and seeing bits and pieces of it. Now, here's the clincher. Talk about a great film to talk on, Delusions of Grandeur, because that's exactly what the Coen brothers have, is Delusions of Grandeur. Because I am not a fan of George Clooney. I think he is very good at being George Clooney, but once you've seen him, it's like that's all you can think about. It's George Clooney. I remember him in ER, and I loved his role for that. But anything else since then is hard for I don't know. There's something about him that is just a plain day average Joe that I just can't really see becoming the characters. That being said, I almost didn't recognize him in this film, because he was all dressed up in that like gallantry Roman costume, and he actually kind of looked fat in the face for once. It was different seeing him having a chubster look to him. But I thought that him playing that role wasn't bad. I thought I remembered seeing James Brolin. I think that's James Brolin, right?
Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin, because he looks like his brother. I swear to God.
His father, you mean?
Or his father. But I remembered him in Gangster Squad, and thought
another movie that got overlooked.
I really liked Gangster Squad.
I don't know. Every time because I grew up watching Josh Brolin in The Goonies, and seeing him go from that to Coen Brothers movies, it's so jarring to see him go from this kid from basically a kid to this rugged middle-aged middle-aged tough guy.
Well, I thought he did a good job at thought he did a good job at playing young what was it, Jay in Men in Black. The
third one. Yeah.
I thought he did a good job at playing that. Seeing him in a gangster type role, which is basically what this was. He was a Hollywood gangster. He was paid to basically keep all the actors in line. I thought the stuff going on in the film was somewhat entertaining. Like, I enjoyed the tap dancing and stuff, scene and stuff like that. But in all honesty, I felt like this was only 3/4 of a film. I felt like we had only got part of the story, so I was left kind of disappointed in the end result. But I liked the idea. I liked the concept. I loved the way it was filmed. I definitely loved the Lasso Kid.
Yeah.
What is twerk?
The Coen brothers, I always seem to have a love-hate relationship with them. At one point, I love what they do, but at the end of the day, is this film really saying anything?
No. Cowboy actors can't act.
Oh, we'll definitely talk on that. So, and Dave, I am wondering if am I correct though that scene where you get to watch Josh Brolin bitch slap George Clooney, did that not give you some gratification?
That gave me extreme pleasure.
I like George Clooney, but that was a funny fucking scene.
And I gotta say, if for being someone's little bitch, he had that scene down, because in the next scene, it was kind of pretty cool, So
good deal. All right, Brandon, is this your first time with this film, and what are your thoughts?
This is my first time with it, and I was glad that we were able to do this because this actually completes my viewing of all the actually pretty much of all the feature films that both Coen brothers did, which is kind of interesting. It's the only one left out because I saw Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which was uneven, but still a fun film overall. But I would say this one was okay. It had struck my interest in a while, but I guess I just didn't have any what's the word? I didn't feel the need to see it right away. I just ended up purchasing it because I try and get a hold of every Coen Brothers movie when they get physical released. Sadly, it looks like we may never get a complete theatrical collection of the Coens, with Buster Scruggs being a streaming only feature.
I still think Criterion will get to it eventually. I hope so.
Who knows? Maybe 20 years from now we'll see it. Maybe 20 years from now we'll see like a complete Coen Brothers collection of just all their combined works. As far as the filmography, when I look at their works, I would consider this one probably in the middle, with Oh Brother, Where Art Thou being at the tippy top, and what was it? A Serious Man being at the very bottom for me. I know we disagree on that. But I'd say this one is as much a actually is more a musical than A Serious Man was a comedy. So I can get behind that. It was that was fun. I enjoyed it overall. Are there better movies out there? Yes. Were there movies that held my attention better? Yes. Grand Budapest Hotel. But the dialogue in particular, you can't watch the movie without really identifying the Coens. Sort of like you couldn't watch Grand Budapest without identifying it as a Wes Anderson piece.
Right.
So overall, good first impression. Not the best Coen Brothers film by my reckoning, but nowhere near the worst by my reckoning either.
All right. Very good. For me, this was one that I more so, sadly, than any other Coen Brothers film, I can say I saw this when it came out. I was actually briefly working in a movie theater when this came out, and I watched the preview showing the night before its actual release. I think I was the only one in the theater doing that. So I was one of the first people in the RVA to see this movie. So I thought that was kind of cool. It was about the same time Deadpool came out, and I pulled the same thing off with that film. So I really that made me happy. But this was one, like with most Coen films, I was actively thinking about it, waiting for it before it came out. And of course, when that happens, sometimes you set yourself up for disappointment. And I'll admit, first time I saw it, I was disappointed. I actually haven't seen it since. This was my second viewing. And I think it pretty well held to what I expected. Maybe I thought it was a little better this time because, reset expectations. Again, I chose this one as much because of the theme for tonight as anything, but honestly, we're probably going to eventually get to all the Coen Brothers films. This is the fourth one I've put up, and I've already done my top two, Oh Brother and Fargo. Raising Arizona is kind of even with No Country for me, and we haven't done No Country yet, but we'll get to it. And then Dane skipped ahead a couple points and brought out Barton Fink, which actually I was very happy about because I love that one. And I almost subbed in Miller's Crossing because Criterion put out an edition this month, but Miller's Crossing could well be next year's. So you got time to prepare on that one. But overall, I do love the Coens. I am a huge fan, and I'm a huge fan of much of this cast. I think one of the reasons for disappointment on first viewing is that so many of them are, if anything, underused. Jonah Hill and Frances McDormand get top billing, and each one is in the film for about 3 minutes. I think Ray Fine probably has about 5 or 6 minutes of total screen time, if that. There's definitely a lot. And Dolph Lundgren, Forrest mentioned him. I've seen the film twice, and it wasn't until I went through the trivia that I even knew he was in the movie.
Yeah, I know him, and I'm a fan. So
He's uncredited for one.
Wow.
And his scene was cut. So they apparently show him in silhouette. He's the Russian commander at the end when Channing Tatum's character gets on the sub. His
Okay.
character being Bert Gurney gets on the sub. Lundgren apparently is seen in silhouette. So you've got some big names in here that are barely here. But you also have some really solid performances. This was the first film I'd ever seen with Alden Ehrenreich, and I was impressed. It takes talent to play a moron and do it convincingly. You know,
Unless you are a moron.
It's like, and he really, but he's a talented moron. And that's part of the joke. And
Well, the
apparently,
funny thing is, he wasn't a complete moron either. He did figure out
yeah.
the extras are probably the ones to look at for the kidnapping and stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't in terms of like, he was not as sophisticated. Let's put it that way.
he definitely, like I said, he couldn't. When it was a western and had little lines and not talking to anyone, he looked like he could act. When he was actually talking to someone and it wasn't a western, he was like an idiot. Like you said,
yeah,
it was pretty funny. It was really funny. That was definitely a funny scene when he's trying to say "twas," you know, like just
the scene with him, his character is Hobie Doyle and Lawrence, who's played Ray Fine, where he's trying to teach him how to say one line, and it just doesn't happen. And then later you have the scene of Mannix watching the dailies, and you see that he just pauses and then finally says, "It's complicated."
Right.
It's like, well, they figured out how to work with it. But
he couldn't say the complicated, so he just went with "it's complicated."
One thing I will say about this one, relative to the other Coen films, Dave, I don't fully disagree with your idea that this one doesn't feel as fully formed as some of their films do. And part of it's because there's so many little subplots that basically Mannix is the main plot. It's a day in the life of a Hollywood fixer. And the major subplot, of course, is the kidnapping of one of the studio's stars, Baird Whitlock, played by George Clooney. And that's a key subplot, too. And then you got several, they're kind of diminishing subplots that go along. And Hobie Doyle and Deanna Moran, the Scarlett Johansson character, they're both pretty big subplots. And then you've got the twin sisters played by Tilda Swinton, who are rival reporters, and that's kind of a subplot that keeps showing up, But overall, you got all these different plots, but it's that main through line is it's a day in the life. So in a sense, this has a structural similarity with Do the Right Thing in a way, because it's kind of a day in the life kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But it's more focused, I think, probably on this one character most of the time. But there's enough deviations from that to kind of go, well, is it really? And you almost wonder if it wouldn't have been better served with something more like Buster Scruggs, which was a anthology film. The one of the reasons it was kind of uneven was it was an anthology. There were several different films in one. So, there's that tonal issue with this one. Otherwise, though, and this was up for one Oscar, which was production design. The production design is just phenomenal, and we'll get to that later. But they did the best they could to recreate early 50s Hollywood. So we'll go ahead and dive into I kind of covered much of the basics of the plot there. But basically, it takes place at Capitol Pictures, which is the same studio, incidentally, that Barton Fink takes place at. It's a fictional studio created by the Coens that may or may not continue to show up in other features. Who knows? But definitely featured in these two. And again, Mannix plays, or Brolin plays Mannix, who's a a fixer who seems like kind of a decent fellow. He definitely knows, though he's the guy, as it were, who knows where the bodies are buried. He's the guy that goes around keeping everyone's reputations clean, keeping pictures on track. Early on, you see him in a focus group for Hail Caesar, the big prestige picture that Clooney is starring in, Baird Whitlock is starring in. He does a focus group with various religious figures, and he's asking them, like, from a religious perspective, is this movie going to fly? Is it going to, And I really like how the Eastern Orthodox guy is just talking about how he didn't like. I can't remember what he picked on, but it was an aspect of the production that had nothing to do with religion. And then, of course, you got the Jewish representative just sitting there, just snidely remarking about the whole thing.
Right.
And all the, all the others are offering their varying levels of sincere, thing. But you also have, again, you have scenes of Mannix watching dailies. You have scenes of him trying to manage all these different various individuals, and you have a couple scenes where you see that he is entertaining an offer to go work for Lockheed and just get out of the business altogether. And it's a steady job, good pay, but he kind of likes the crazy, even though he seems frustrated for much of the film. You come to realize he really likes the crazy.
He likes being the cog in the wheel of capital.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He likes being the guy.
Even though
he does it. Yeah. So, and then you have these various other, he's the cog in the wheel. You have these various spokes in the wheel. Again, you've got the second major through line, Baird Whitlock, who I would say, if I were to wager, let's see, 1951, I guess he would probably be an analog of like a Cary Grant type, something like that, like the big name star that they would put in a prestige
Charlton
film.
Heston, maybe.
Charlton Heston, is it 51? Maybe. Wasn't 52 when The Greatest Show on Earth came out? I think
I was thinking The Greatest Story Ever Told.
That was much later. That was in the 60s. But this was more like an analog of Ben-Hur. Actually, they used some of the set pieces from Ben-Hur for this one. So you got him as like the big star of the day. Well, let's put it that way. And he's doing this Ben-Hur-ish. It's even subtitled A Tale of the Christ, if I remember correctly, which was the subtitle of Ben-Hur. And you've got this scene early on where you get these two very nervous-looking, sweaty-looking extras in togas standing around waiting for him to imbibe of a particular drink. And they, of course, Wayne Knight and Jeff Lewis are the ones that play them. And, you can spot Wayne Knight anywhere. But they're sitting there, he takes the drink finally and passes out a little bit later, and they take him and drop him off at a Malibu beachfront house full of writers. Who you eventually come to realize are communists, and you've got some interesting people in there: Fisher Stevens, Patrick Fischler, Dave Krumholtz, some of those people. And when he comes to, he sits and just starts chatting with them, and becomes a very fast convert. Spoilers, people. But he just becomes which is another backdrop, very important historical backdrop to this film, is that this was basically, I think, at the front edge of the McCarthy era, like right around the time that communism was starting to
take heed.
That people
House of Un-American Activities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff was starting to rear its very ugly head about this. And what was I saying? So he gets pulled into this whole thing. They've got him supposedly for ransom. Like they're trying to stick it to the studios because, and this is true, the studios did not do crap for writers at this point in time. The studio system, there were a few exceptions. The Coens are known for being huge fans of Preston Sturges, and of course we covered his film Sullivan's Travels when we did "Oh Brother Art Thou." Sturges was one of the very few writers of this time that actually was able to be successful. Most of them were lucky if they got proper credit, you know.
Even
And,
in this day and age, writers are hard to actually recognize or get recognized for the work that
they don't get what they should. Yeah, that's very true. And and the so you got that's your other major one, and then you got the subplot with Hobie Doyle, who's the singing cowboy, basically. You know, think someone like
Roy Rogers.
Roy Rogers, exactly. Gene Autry, someone like that, you know. And he, you know, he does his stunts. He sings. He has a line here and there, and that's pretty much it. He's built a career on that. And then they've got another, and he's making a film. He's making a film. I don't remember the name of his film offhand.
But should we call him He Who Should Not Be Named?
Who? Hobie Doyle?
No, I'm talking about the director that he ends up going with.
Yeah, we get to that just here in a moment because we got the. I just wanted to check and see because the films are actually a pretty big part of it, but not all of them are named. Ralphian is doing a film called he's doing a film called Merrily We Dance, which is basically one of those stodgy period pieces that were really, really big back in the day, with enormous, gaudy sets. You know, I guess you could, the way the set looks, I would almost think of it as like a bargain basement My Fair Lady kind of. You know what I mean? Like it's a pretty set, but the impression you get is that the film was but it's a big one for the studio, and they're short a leading man somehow. So the studio head says, put Hobie Doyle on it. And everyone's kind of like, you know, and Hobie's, you know, again, Alden Ehrenreich just does a great job with this. He takes it in stride. He's like, well, okay, well, they want me to do that. I'll give it a try, you know. So he gets all dressed up, and then he goes in.
He has no choice because he's sitting there at his lunch, and he's like, you're called to be on set here. Right. And he's like, oh, okay.
He's like, you're done here. You go back to the studio. And he's like, really? And he's like, yeah. And then, of course, this again, this is one of my favorite scenes. You got where he walks onto the stage. He kind of has to push the door open. It doesn't open. And then he kind of almost stumbles in there. And then he comes in and does a wide pan around and then the lady on is like, come join me on the divan. You know? And then he comes and does like this weird wide pan, kind of wide-eyed, and he goes and sits down looking as uncomfortable as can be. And then
way away from her.
Yeah. And then they try the directors tells me Lawrence starts telling him, okay, well, go ahead, you know, say your line. And the line is would that it were so simple. And that's all it is. It's just simple line. And the whole scene is their struggle to get through that one line. And and again, Ray Fiennes, he's so brilliant in the role. I love how he's so patient. And he's clearly, by the end of it, kind of angry. But he's holding it in.
It's because this Hobie character cannot speak anything but hick. So
yes.
Right.
And it's he's very pleasant about it and very complimentary to the degree that he can be.
He just keeps apologizing for saying his name wrong.
Yes. Oh, that was the other thing. He keeps calling him by the wrong name.
He kept calling him Lawrence.
Oh no!
Well,
he called him Mr. Lawrence for the first couple times. He's like, no, call me Lawrence. And then by the end, he's getting angry because he calls him Lawrence. He's like, no, it's Mr. Lawrence. It's like, and
yeah, I know. I caught that myself, and I'm like, wait, you told him not to call you that.
At least you didn't mess up and call him Voldemort.
Yeah, that would be a minor slip up, I'm sure. Yes. And then of course a couple scenes later, we're back in Mannix's office, and he comes storming in. Laurence comes storming in. Hobie Doyle cannot act. And it's just, it's like, this is a drama, Mannix, a real drama. It's an adaptation of a Broadway smash. It requires the skills of a trained thespian, not a rodeo clown. and he's like so prim and proper and upright in the way he says everything. It's just the contrast between the two. I just love the contrast between the two. So I'm gonna, I'll tip my hat, but that is my favorite scene. The scene between Ehrenreich and Fiennes. I just love that scene. But then Doyle shows up a few more times. He gets asked to escort Carlota Vedez to a premiere of another one of his films. She's played by Veronica Osorio. Doesn't have a big role, but she basically is the what's the name? I'm drawing a blank, but she's a stand-in for a famed Latina actress from the time, Carmen Miranda. Yeah, so basically, a lot of these people are like kind of stand-ins for others. And of course, Scarlett Johansson as Deanna Moran is very much a stand-in for Esther Williams. And so she's doing an aquatic musical with choreography and all this really impressive set pieces for that one. And turns out she's knocked up. And this is, of course, the time where that was not allowed with unmarried actresses. And
plus, she was supposed to be wholesome, and so everyone thought her
exactly
and innocent.
And apparently, she claims that the father was a director that we meet later in the film, Arne Suslin, who's played by Christopher Lambert.
She did say, I think. It's like,
I think.
Yeah.
She was anything but wholesome.
Yeah. She's smoking a cigarette and fucking talking about all these guys. Obviously she bangs a lot of guys, and I loved when she meets Jonah Hill, though. She's like looking like she wants to eat him up there, at the moment. It's like she's totally into him,
he's the answer to her problem, apparently. But and Jonah Hill does factor into that storyline in his very brief appearance, where he's basically what they pretty much define him. He's like a professional. I think she says it. I think she said the line, so you're a professional person. Basically, like that's basically what he does. If someone needs a person, he's the guy. And so that is so that's one of the Mannix is trying to finesse that to keep that story from breaking, to make sure that she is taken care of and not ruined, as it were.
I
He's
love
trying to
she's gonna adopt
finesse,
her own child,
which
They
is
come up with the idea.
actually
Yeah,
apparently that was actually based on real events as well.
yeah.
It was based on a who was the individual? An actress who claimed to have been not only knocked up but straight up raped by Clark Gable. That was apparently did the same thing. Ended up adopting her own child to cut down on the wagging tongues, as it were. And like I said, we also see Mannix try to finesse Laurence and keep him from blowing a lid. He's got to he's got to manage the whole kidnapping situation with Whitlock, keep that out of the papers. And
Yep.
meanwhile, we also meet the Tilda Swinton as Thora and Thessaly Thacker, who are identical twin gossip columnists, although they claim to be journalists, you know.
Right.
And they're stand-ins for Hedda Hopper and Luella Parsons. But they have this, one of them seems to have a smoking gun, if you will, about Whitlock.
The when the eagles fly or something like that.
Yes, it's like where eagles dare to fly or something like that. Was the
It's like
yeah,
yeah, you kind of get left hanging about what the hell happened because they don't really say what happened.
They kind of do. They kind of do. And again, this was very much based on real rumors from the time. But it turns out that their source was Channing Tatum's character, Bert Gurney.
Yeah.
And it involved his friend, Laurence. And there was an idea that Baird had gotten where he did, partly by ye old casting couch, as it were. Including with Laurence as the director, if you will. So that was that's hinted at. It's not really hit you over the head, but it's kind of there.
I remember that now.
And then we have another plot thread of Bert Gurney, who is a song and dance man, kind of in the vein of Gene Kelly or someone of that nature. And that's Channing Tatum's character. And this is where the musical part comes in, because he's filming a musical. And that is I like that whole scene. That was just a fun. It's an original song called No Dames. Bunch of seamen getting ready to go out to sea, and they're singing about, and I just love the name of the bar, the Swinging Dinghy. I just a great and terrible name for a bar.
Right.
And then the bartender, supposedly the bartender is a direct nod to Billy Joel's Piano Man video. At least that's, I'm not familiar with the video, but I'm curious about that. I think that's kind of fun. But it turns out that Gurney is the owner of the Malibu beachfront home that the communists have been sitting in. And he gets his moment at the end where he rides in triumph to the big submarine, and but the money is lost somehow. And the Coen brothers have a lot of lost briefcases of money in their films. It's kind of an interesting. What's up?
We did mention, how we were saying the actor is kind of a moron, but like I said, he did figure it out, and then he also saw them with the briefcase, at the restaurant, and he even though he was having a good time with his date, he's like, excuse me, but I gotta go, and he follows him, so he basically, he follows him, and then gets Raylock back and stuff. And
I did like how he made like a tiny little lasso and lassoed her finger. And
that was
in there.
She was laughing.
The little noodle lasso,
Yeah. That was he was really good with the lasso. I mean,
he had to learn how to do that, so he did a good job preparing for the film, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely. I don't think it looks that easy to do. He made it look easy.
And I don't think I've ever seen that in any Western. What he did with the tiny lasso. So kudos for that.
Yeah, it was really cute. He lost to her finger, like pulls her
Right.
neck. You know, it was really, really cute.
Right.
Yeah, it was. They had good chemistry with the two of them too. So.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, really, essentially, it's kind of most of the plot threads there. Like I said, there is the one about his just trying to decide if he's going to skip and do a different job. You do get one scene with the wife who's played by Alison Pill, and she's kind of like, yeah, it would be kind of nice if you had good hours, you know, and
nice to have you
that's
home,
sort of, yeah. So, and then you got one little scene where he's getting ready to run the dailies, and the projectionist is played by Frances McDormand, and so that was her appearance in the film. And she has a little. I think she was having some fun with that, but it's not a big role. It's kind of easy to overlook.
It was a good role, though. I mean, you know, the way she's like choking, you know.
Yeah, her scarf got,
and he pulls it out. And she just like barely says anything, barely takes a real breath, and just puffs the cigarette. Like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
You almost died, and your first thought is to smoke your cigarette.
well, obviously. and we should mention that Arne Sessler, the supposed father of Deanna's child, is the director of the film that Bert Gurney is in. And that was kind of... interesting, you know, like he went there to drop off the Mannix went there to drop off the ransom payment, but he you know, he's like, kill two birds with one stone. He had to talk to the guy anyway. So and that was when he found out, well, wait, the guy's actually married to someone else back home in Sweden. That was like, oh, awkward. And incidentally, talking about the names in the film is narrated lightly, but it is narrated, and it's narrated by Michael Gambon. So that is very cool. You don't usually hear him doing voiceover work, but he has a good voice for it. So that was kind of a fun thing to when I realized who that he was in there. I don't think I realized that on first viewing. So that's, like I said, most of the characters and most of the plot wrapped up there. Does anyone have any particular area that they wanted to do a particular dive into? We kind of sped through that part of it, but anyone
could do
have
the characters?
Well, did you have a particular one you wanted to look at?
Well, you know, I don't know. Well, obviously, the main character, Mannix, you know, his character, like you said, he's kind of a nice guy. It's funny how he seems to be going to church like every day to confess his sins, which isn't too bad.
He's annoying his priest by doing confessions so often.
Yeah, because he's like the priest, like it really hasn't been that long. You know, like the priest says that to him, like, you know, it hasn't really been that long. It's only been, you know, he said 27 hours. Like, he looks at the clock and he like tells him exactly how long it's been, and you know, it's fine. His watch. He looks at his watch a lot too throughout it, which just signifies his job that he's always got to look at his watch to see because he's got to be somewhere. He's always got to be somewhere. He's always on the run. He doesn't have a second to take a break, really. You know what I mean? He does have an office, which he is in sometimes, but, you know, he's definitely running all around while he's saving an actress from taking her pictures in a costume or whatever. I love how he bribes the cops, and, you know, they're just like cool about it, you know, and yeah, just gets her out there, and they're like, "Aren't you?" Blah. No, she's. Well, she says her last name and flubs it up, and he corrects her, which, you know, obviously is made up, but the cops don't say nothing about it. You know, it's just then he has to bum the cigarette because another thing that he's confessing is that he told his wife he's going to quit. He quit smoking, and you know, he can't quite do it, but he actually did a pretty good job of quitting. I quit myself, so I know what it's like, especially with his job. Very, very hard job. So, you know, I could definitely see why he wants to smoke. So it definitely like his character, and then the actress, she did such a great job of portraying this person that's supposed to be wholesome on movies, and then she's definitely not. She's smoking, she's swearing,
Oh, you're talking about Johansson's character, yeah.
women are definitely not supposed to be doing that, and then she's basically hitting on anything with anything with legs that's has a difference between the legs, yeah. Like I said, I really love how she hit on Jonah Hill, and you could definitely tell, like, just with her eyes and everything, her whole body language was saying, "Yeah, I want you now," type thing. And yeah, it was really cool. And he just looked like he knew, and he was like, wow, like, this fucking hot ass actress is really into me. That's
Right.
He's trying to conduct business. He's trying to not really, point on it or do anything. Just do what he's supposed to be doing, his job. But he's like definitely like, wow. It's like really knocking him over almost. Of how that.
You must have very strong forearms. Is it hot squeezing that thing like that?
Yeah,
Comes
totally,
with the job, man.
Yeah, she's totally trying to hit on him big time. He's just trying to get through his job and do what he's supposed to be doing. But it turns out good. I mean, they end up getting married, so it isn't just. I guess in that day and age, you like somebody, you just get married to them. Doesn't matter if you have like a tons of exes or divorces, but.
Right.
You get married. You get married. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I the George Clooney's character is pretty
Right.
is pretty funny too. I mean, like I said, I like George Clooney, but the slaps is that's funny, and I think the slaps is that's what you get for trying to play Batman the way you played it, like smack. He definitely screwed up Batman. Totally, like that was a role. I'm like, no, he was definitely the worst Batman. I don't think Val Kilmer was that much better, but he's definitely better. And he played the Batman with bat nipples and stuff too. So he played Batman gay.
Right.
He's not fucking gay, goddamn. Yeah, he has a ward, and it's just a ward, okay? He's not his lover or anything like people have alluded to before.
Right.
So played him more gay. Yeah, I definitely would like to slap him for that. So those slaps are definitely funny, and I definitely say, yeah, he definitely deserved that for his portrayal of Batman and Bruce Wayne.
I heard stories that Clooney will give refunds to anybody who tells him that they saw Batman and Robin in theaters.
I did. I need to get my refund.
He could probably afford to as well. Yeah.
Well, I think I only paid like $95 because back then, and probably watched it on some kind of matinee or something. But
but still, it'd be really funny, and it'd be kind of cool to say, "Yeah, I got $5 from George Clooney."
The soundtrack was definitely better than the movie.
If he gave you a check, I wouldn't cash it. I'd like frame it up there, like, I got a check from George Clooney,
right?
For his horrible portrayal of Batman.
So, Forrest, do you have any particular character thoughts, or have you
any particular character thoughts? See, I mean, I enjoyed Tilda Swinton as the Thacker sisters. She's great. I find her she's really great at disappearing into. She's really good at disappearing into roles.
And actually, she also is in both movies tonight. And this one, she disappeared under some increasingly outlandish hats.
Yeah.
And of course, in Grand Budapest Hotel, she disappeared under pounds of makeup. So.
Or actually, if you watch Suspiria, she plays a character. She plays a male character that I had no idea was even her until I was looking at the credits.
Yeah, I think I remember that because we covered both Suspirias when we did that, right?
Yep.
I think we did. Yeah. That new one was pretty. It was rough.
If you're saying it's rough, I don't think I want to watch it.
Yeah, it was rough. But but Swinton likes playing. She likes odd stuff,
eccentric characters.
She plays very eccentric characters. Yeah, Dave, you were trying to say something?
No. As far as characters go, I mean, some of the characters were pretty good for how they played them. It's just I wish I knew what the underlying statement of this movie was. It didn't really come across as such a grand. I mean, the outcome of it and the finishing wording of it made me think like it was only like part of what they were trying to say. So I feel like there is some unfinished thought processing in this movie. So
I told you it's about, cowboys can't act.
Well, I was going to say, I think there's quite a bit of unfinished thought processing in the part of certain of the characters. I think again, Alden Ehrenreich and George Clooney and frankly Channing Tatum all play characters who are not exactly rocket scientists.
Yeah.
There's a few characters like that.
What's funny is Channing Tatum is like, I never didn't know he could tap dance. So I was like, I guess he isn't just a stripper dancer.
I think I heard that he learned that for this role, and the other people in the scene, for the most part, were actual like legit stage people who had a lot of tap dance experience.
I do feel like the tap dancing was dubbed.
The what?
I do feel like the tap dancing, the sound of the tap dancing was dubbed over the sound of their feet. Because I've heard tap dancing before. For some reason, it felt like their tap dancing was dubbed. But that being said, it was a pretty well choreographed scene.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the behind the scenes footage claimed that they were all professionals doing their work, except for Tatum. So I'm not so sure that I would, but I might have to next time I look at it. I'll have to keep that in mind and see what my thoughts are on
they
that.
They can always say one thing and I just think another. So
no, that's entirely true. But like I said, they did. Like I said, and that was one thing about the behind the scenes was they said they singled out that scene, and they singled out this scene, the aquatic dance scene, with like all that they said that a lot of those swimmers were like professional, synchronized swimmers and whatever, and they tried to bring in people that at least knew what they were doing. You know what I mean? Although, of course, there was some movie magic involved to make it all work, as it were. Brandon, you were trying to say something?
Well, it's like, as I said in one of the other films, they're not tapping anymore, they're doing choreography.
Yeah, exactly. And you do get a little aside about Danny Kaye in this film at some point.
Oh yeah.
But he's not as nasty as you would put him out to be, because and all that stuff. I was like, I didn't know he had a nasty reputation.
Yeah, I said that. I said exactly. I thought exactly the same thing. I'm like, what? I always thought Danny Kaye was like more like his characters that you love him, type lovable type person. So.
Well, I know that Frank Sinatra had a terrible reputation.
Sinatra definitely.
Oh yeah.
But I hadn't heard anything nasty about Danny Kaye until this film.
Yeah,
not very often.
I think maybe they were joking around about it.
They probably were. And if I remember correctly, I think it was George Clooney's character that actually said that. And in a way, it was an in joke because, of course, his aunt starred with Danny Kaye in White Christmas. So, that was probably the Coens having their bit of fun by having that apparent inside track.
Yeah, that probably is it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, so it's cool.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Rosemary Clooney, I believe. So, yeah.
Yeah, but, she's his aunt. Yeah.
I wanted to say about the plot before we move on.
Okay.
Is that I think one of the weakest pieces in this is that there are so many side stories going on. I've been conflicted about it because at one point I do agree it's just it kind of puts an air of realism there because you're in Hollywood, you see a lot of different stuff going on, but at the same time, it makes it sometimes difficult to keep up with the whole of the main plot.
I disagree a little bit with that. There are some movies where they have way too many plot threads and you can't keep up. But I didn't have a problem keeping up with any of the plot threads, and I thought they're all interesting. I mean, this, like we said, basically the day in life of this fixer, and so obviously he's going to see a lot of things, and he's going to need to fix a lot of things, and some things he doesn't necessarily have anything to do with. But
what's up, Dave?
I was going to say one scene we kind of glossed over was this part where Mannix brought in all these religious people to talk about the whole whether the man that they had brought in to play Jesus Christ was as real as the real thing it can be, and how deeply spiritual they got into the whole thing about how he was just a man and
the son of
vice
God,
versa.
God is...
Go ahead.
I just thought it was kind of comical, the different comments on by the Jewish rabbi, and you got the one guy who's from Star Trek Voyager. I love him. He said, "I don't have an opinion" by the end of the whole thing, and it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
He was nitpicking the whole way, and then he's just like, I don't have an opinion.
Well, again, on that particular question, he kind of really didn't have much to say, because really it wasn't so much that they brought him in to discuss questions of divinity. It was more, again, it was basically a religious focus group to make sure that that they weren't going to do anything that would piss off anyone. They had, again, Aramas Stepanian plays an Eastern Orthodox clergyman. You got Alan Harvey is a Protestant clergyman. Robert Pike Daniel is a Catholic clergyman. And then Robert Picardo is a rabbi. And again, I did like where he asked them, first of all, like, is this how is this portrayal? And then the Orthodox clergyman was something like talking about the editing or some such thing. But then, let's go ahead. Go ahead.
Actually, I'm kind of wondering if that whole moment, because I'm sure that must have been something common for Hollywood back in the 50s. But I remember,
I'm sure.
I remember the first time hearing about this was when I heard the story about like what happened when Lucille Ball got pregnant, and CBS was unsure if they wanted to incorporate, if they should acknowledge the pregnancy in the show. I Love Lucy, so they consulted a rabbi, a priest, and a minister.
And they kind of depicted that.
So I don't see how it would be a problem. It's not like they weren't married.
And I think being the Ricardo,
it had never been done.
Yeah. The idea that
it had never been done before when they did that.
Yeah, it was the idea that you would depict that the idea that somebody might draw the line that they must have done something in order to start the pregnancy, and then you've got that lewdness, that
they are married. I mean, hello.
inappropriateness. I remember the funny thing in that movie.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen Meeting the Ricardos, it was a good one. I think it's meeting being what was called something.
Being the Ricardos. Yeah, I need to
if
see
you
that.
haven't
Yeah, I haven't
seen
seen
it,
that
it's
yet.
fun. And they're like, but what if children start asking questions where the babies come from? And what about their beds? They've got to keep them apart. And I'm like, yes, just like a real married couple. And then she says, she basically goes into it like, yeah, we screwed to have the child. Let's just say something. They just go, oh, like, they're all offended by it. But that's the thing. That's that idea. It's like the concept of, well, we're offending the Christian sensibility of our watchers, which that's a long ways out.
The era of the offended has not died down any since
Oh
then.
God,
Either.
worse than ever.
Well, it's a different type of offended, but yeah, it was.
Right.
You don't want to offend this group. Well, I guess now it's you don't want to offend this group. Different groups, but yes.
Suck it up.
As Groucho Marx would say, to that I think he would say something about to the effect of "I resent that" or something. I resent that remark.
Right. So the basic thing here was they wanted to make sure their portrayal of Jesus would not offend the sensibilities of anyone involved, Christian or otherwise. And each of the Catholic priests gives this very nice little discussion. It's almost like a mini sermon. And the other two are basically just kind of nodding their heads. And then the rabbi again just sitting there. He's like, "Well, we don't want to see a depiction of the Godhead, but this is Jesus. He's not God, so do what you want." Basically, that was pretty much his take on it. But anyway, Forrest, did you finish your point before? I know he kind of.
I'm done.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure everyone kind of started going at once. And Tammy, we haven't heard much from you. Did you have some character thoughts or thoughts on particular plot line or what have you?
I actually got a kick out of the cowboy. I thought he was funny.
Right.
When he did that whole scene at the dinner with he's doing all the little tricks with the little pasta, and he's doing this trick and that trick and everything. It was just like, okay, that is food, and you're sitting here doing. But she was just laughing her butt off and being so entertained by it, and it was just like, okay, that doesn't take much to entertain you, girl. But I got a kick out of him, like when they brought him onto that new movie. And he walked in there. He walked in so stiff, and so his gait was just so stiff, and you said his eyes were just like bugged out, and he looked scared to death.
Yeah,
he really did. And then the whole thing about trying to get him to say the line the right way and everything. I really liked him. I mean, and then when he was at the movies with the girl. And they were showing his movie, and during the movie that old man is yelling at the moon, and he jumps into that water,
right.
And everybody in the theater's laughing. And at first he seems like okay, because he wanted them to pay attention. I think they wanted him to pay attention to him singing in the movie, and now everybody's laughing at this guy in the movie and not paying attention to him. And then the second time that guy does something in the movie, then he finally gets into the laughter with everybody. But at first it seemed like, oh, come on, I want everybody to pay attention to me in the movie,
Honestly, I kind of got the impression that his feelings were a bit hurt because I think he thought they were laughing at him for a moment. That was the way I read it. But then he realized he's laughing at the other guy, and he's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, I liked him. I mean,
yeah.
The actor did a good job.
Yeah. And I do like him and her, like him and Carlota. They make a cute couple. And it kind of like,
They do.
it was obviously something the studio was doing just to drum up support for their movies. But it's kind of like, maybe Mannix did something nice during this day. You know what I mean? That's kind of the way I read that.
Matchmaker, making you match.
Yep.
Because they really were getting along well, It's like.
So whenever I think Mannix, I keep thinking about the TV series.
You got to wonder if maybe that was a nod to him, because if this was a real dude, you got to wonder if that name was a nod to it. I don't know. But I had a thought and I've lost it. That happens. What? Oh, yeah. But anyway, right. So anyway, Tammy, I'm sorry. I might have. I hope I didn't cut you off there. I'm sorry. If
you're fine.
Okay. Geez, I had another thought. Well, anyway, if anyone wants to throw in with a thought while I'm searching for that one. Let's see.
I do believe that this movie was definitely trying to show you a bit of like the life at that time period, but it was trying to throw some other ideas in there along with the mix that didn't entirely take hold entirely for me, and I was looking for. I guess I was looking for what the whole reason behind this movie was, and I just didn't get it per se. But I did like the characters that came out in it. I did like the bitch slapping of Clooney, and I mean
that's
something
Dave,
I will probably remember.
Dave, that sounds like the title of a movie that you would love. It could be a documentary.
There is a movie called Bitch Slap that stars
Kevin
Sorbo and Michael Hirsch. So
I think I know which one you're talking about. I've seen it. It's fun.
Oh yeah. Actually, I think this movie. This movie reminds me a lot of the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And I mean, also, which does a lot of this similarity. More, I mean, the style of the directors is obviously very different because, well, the Coens and Tarantino are slightly different directors.
Tiny bit.
Yeah, the Coens pepper their dialogue with profanity, and Tarantino peppers his profanity with dialogue.
I feel like they're both kind of shades of a similar stock.
Well, they're hardcore film geeks who got to make their own movies, Yeah.
I don't know if we've really gotten to that part yet, but one part that stuck out with me is when they threw the money at him when he's standing on top of the submarine and he's holding the dog, and he was holding the money or whatever. How did that one go? Oh, yeah, he was holding the money, and then the dog wanted to be, so he drops the money for the dog. And it's like, why would you do that when you know that that's going to sink and you can fish the dog out of the damn water? Not that I'd want to see anything bad happen to the dog, but the money's going to sink. Why would you drop the money? You can fish the dog out of the water.
Drove me nuts. I'm like, oh, shut that fucking dog up. Like somebody strangled that dog. I'm like, oh, that dog drove me nuts.
I just remember that part. Like, what an idiot.
Right.
Why drop the money for the dog?
Well, again, in the bonus features I watched, Channing Tatum straight up called his character an idiot. He straight up said he's not that bright. and I don't know. And I think it might have been him that made a comment about how his hair should get his own movie or something like that. Certainly in that scene. But
It was
I don't
something
know.
else.
But yeah, I always thought that was kind of weird. Like, what after all they did for that money, and then all those communists just sitting there in the boat, like just kind of watching it sink.
And go,
like,
no.
yeah, it's kind of.
Well,
I
yeah,
don't know.
nobody even scrambled to try and get it or jump in and grab it or something,
Right?
you
I
know?
was expecting something.
Yeah. Well, they probably were thinking. They're probably thinking, well, it'll just wash ashore and we can go find it. Yeah, I don't know. I never, and that was one of the things that the movie does have kind of an odd. That whole plot line has kind of an odd ending to it, and and Hobie shows up at the beach house, and Whitlock's just sitting there, just chilling, like he wasn't invited to go with the communists or anything. He's just chilling and having a good time. But this is what leads to him getting bitch slapped. He goes back and tells Mannix all this great stuff he learned. And just he's going on about it. And Mannix just manhandles him and bitch slaps him. And it's like, no. This studio pays your checks. No, you don't back out the studio.
You never back up the studio again. You go out there and you act your best and be a star.
Well, yeah, he accused him of plotting his own kidnapping.
Yeah,
Right. Being part of the
if you ever
kidnapping.
out of that again, I'll have you arrested for help plotting your own kidnapping.
There was that scene earlier where he inquired if he was going to get a cut of the loot.
I really
so
did
funny.
like the I
That'd be
really did
unethical.
like the tea party scene, essentially, where they had the cucumber sandwiches with the crust chopped off.
Right.
But I mean, I thought it was great at the end where you've got this person and kind of she's got them over a barrel for the most part story-wise until the end where they figure out about the communists, which of course that was their idea. It's like, well, why don't I just tell on you? It's like, well, because we'll just out you for what you did in that Where Eagles Dare or whatever.
Yeah.
And then of course when they finally call him on that, then they realize, oh wait, your source is now a known communist. Good luck. We'll out your source and we'll see who stands up. And yes, in McCarthyism times, that would have sunk anybody at that point.
Yeah. Yep. Interesting how those things work in it. And so then we finally get the next day, it's back to business as usual. Mannix has decided not to go with Lockheed. Whitlock is back on set trying to do his movie and forgetting lines. I kind of like how he gives this powerful, impassioned speech and basically forgets one word. Yeah,
faith. You forgot the word faith. Which I mean, the whole thing's about Christ and everything, and you forgot the one word faith. It's like ironic.
Yeah. It's like, really? That's the thing you forget. That's what you forget. Yeah. So, if we're all talked out on the characters and plot, any last minute stuff, or should we move on to production? Okay, I guess we'll do that. So, like I said, this is a film, and this is one of the areas where the movie, I think, really shines. And again, this is where it got one Oscar nod. The production design was just kind of brilliant. One of the things that they did, I think it was one of the whole points of the film, honestly. Dave, you're kind of wondering what the point. I'm not sure this counts as a narrative point so much as a point of its existence, is the whole idea of, it really is a love letter to a time and place in movie history, but also kind of a semi-critical look at kind of what led to its demise, if you will, because really 51 was kind of the beginning of the end for the studio system. They were really kind of coming apart at the seams, and people like Mannix wouldn't necessarily have jobs for too much longer than this, because people started kind of coming into their own a little more. They weren't necessarily owned by the studios.
They started having brains and started having independent agents of their own and stuff like that. I mean,
well, the second one, I'm not sure about the first one, but but
We got to talk about celebrities here.
but you do have but yes, people were more, there was much more independence. Like, they mentioned in the movie things like people being on loan from other studios. Like, I think the guy playing Jesus was on loan from another studio, and he had to go back.
I want to say that there was a court case in reference to that, because the way that they had done it is essentially the only way you could act is if you had these contracts. And I feel like there was some sort of court case that led to its dissolving, but I cannot remember what.
I think you're right about that, but I don't remember the particulars either. It might have even been almost an antitrust thing, because the way that the studios were structured, they were basically a few power players pretty much held monopolies on the industry. So that that might have been part of it too.
I think it was an antitrust case, but I'm sure somebody in the comments could tell us.
Yeah, I'm sure the Coens know all about that, but I'm not quite as well versed on my studio history as I would like to be, but but this one basically, like I said, we've got the big sword and sandals religious epic. We've got the period costume drama. We've got the musical, like the kind of song and dance, free will and musical comedy. But we've also got the more graceful, I guess, kind of. Well, again, the kind of Esther Williams type, but I'm trying to remember. Well, the Gene Kelly being more the other one, I suppose. But and I am skipping something. I'm on very little sleep today. And then we also have the.
I would say almost the James Cagney type with the communists. As far as Channing Tatum's character.
Well, off screen, we had nods to things like that. Like, I'm talking about like the actual movies themselves. They bent over backwards to recreate the films of the time, and they really did a good job with the visual and production and costuming and all that kind of stuff.
It felt like you were watching a movie. Watching them make a movie in the 50s, making movies.
Yeah.
It felt like that. It was done in 2014, but it felt like you were watching it, or 2016, and it felt like you were watching it in the 50s. Kind of, it had that. They captured the time period perfectly.
And I think people reacted to that with a positive note, just like they did with La La Land.
Right. Well, people in Hollywood love movies about movies. I mean, that's one of the truisms of Hollywood, I think. And I'm going to be honest, I love movies about movies. I do. I really enjoy La La Land, The Artist. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood did disappoint me, but it was still a good film.
I would say my favorite though is both bigger with Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy.
Oh, I love Bowfinger, and that was one that got really underrated. That's actually
Yeah.
one I've
I've
been
not seen
wanting to
that.
put forward. Yeah, that's a fun one. We will be covering it eventually. If I don't put it forward, someone else will. Um, but it's but yeah, movies about making movies. I've always found that very fun and very interesting. And as we've said so far this month, I love movies that really do try hard to set a time and place. Like this one captured the period detail just as well as Ride with the Devil, just as well as Gosford Park.
Yeah.
They really worked hard on the period detail. They really and also I just one of the
I'll
most
agree with you on the. I'll agree with you on the period detail with Gosford Park. But anything else?
Okay. Very good. And one thing, one person that I really think is criminally underrated by Oscar is Carter Burwell. Carter Burwell is one of the best composers in movie history. And he has done quite a few Coen Brothers scores, but he has only ever been nominated twice, and not for Coen Brothers scores. He was nominated for Carol, and he was nominated for 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. His score here ranks with both of those films. And his scores for Fargo and Miller's Crossing wiped the floor with most of the scores out there. And yet, he's only been nominated twice. And he was not nominated this year. Supposedly his score for Macbeth was excellent, but nope, not nominated. So I really... And this also reteamed the Coens. They stepped away for 2 or 3 films and did films with Bruno Del Bonell doing their cinematography. Many of their films were lensed by Roger Deakins, and this was their reunion with him after a couple of films. And Deakins he's again a phenomenal cinematographer, and he and the Coens know how to work together. They know each other's language, you might say. And Mary Zofries does costumes on most of their films. Her costume work here was just excellent. So overall, I think for me that the film got royally gypped on the production aspects. In terms of like production design was really the only thing it got a lot of nods for, and I'm like, what about the rest of it?
Right.
And as far as the power of the performances, I already said, what I think about a couple of them. I do think this is a brilliant performance, if brief, for Afon. I do think Josh Brolin's excellent. But this was, again, my first experience with Alden Ehrenreich. And, a lot of people like to crap on Solo, but one cool thing about Solo is if you put that up against this, you're like, this dude does have some acting chops, because
I'm sorry, Solo was a great fucking movie.
Well, I thought it was pretty good, but a lot of people didn't. But
the problem is people like, Harrison Ford's my Han Solo. Okay, Harrison Ford's really old, and they didn't want to. They got instead of using the CGI, because you know what? If they use CGI, people would complain about that. It wouldn't have worked
as well.
Either way, they're going to complain about it, and people just suck. That's all there is to it. And the most of the reason people didn't see it is because they were on a ban because of how bad the Last Jedi was to people, like how the way they treated Luke and everything about that film. People hated, or a lot of people hated, and so they had a movement of they're not going to go watch Solo. Like that was their response to the movie was they're not going to go see. They're going to make Solo tank because of that, and it's not because the movie is bad. I mean, there's a few plot things you could say with it or whatever, but you're nitpicking. I mean, if you nitpick Star Wars, everything falls apart. Yeah. Okay. Well, I can nitpick it too.
Yeah.
I know there's plenty of things. I'm a huge fan. Of course, I know the movies inside and out, and I know plenty of plot holes in the movies. but I
Right.
enjoy them. I don't want to pick them apart. It's just sorry to get off a tangent on that, but
Right.
I
Well,
really
like I said,
enjoy the movie, and I think it just didn't get its fair share. It's it didn't get a fair share because of people wanting Disney or whatever to pay for them screwing up things, and so
right.
Solo paid the price for it.
Right. My hesitance had more to do with the fact the mouse has enough damn money. But the like I said, I was kind of looking at it. It's like Ehrenreich was great in Hail Caesar, so I wonder what he would do with Han Solo. And to me, my point being that it shows a fair bit of breadth because here, Hobie Doyle is, he's a cowboy. He's got a little bit of a swagger going, but he's also kind of a decent, humble guy. He's not really. Whereas Solo's all brash and all that kind of, it's a very different take on that kind of character. And
yeah, definitely.
So I like kind of compare and contrast actors' work. It's like this one is kind of a darker, dirtier role than Scarlett Johansson usually does. Usually she plays kind of the sort of character she supposedly is in the film. You know what I mean? Yeah, well, no. Like we were saying earlier, she's supposed to be kind of like the kind of pure, kind of someone to look up to, whatever. And as soon as the camera stops rolling, it's like, not what you thought. Although, yes, she is a bombshell, no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah.
But we could. What's up?
Recently, there was a thing in the she was all upset about how she's always sexualized and stuff. Bitch, you're doing these movies. You're doing these movies, and yeah, you're gorgeous, and of course people are gonna notice. But she's trying to say they were really pushing it in Black Widow and stuff. No, they weren't. I've seen plenty of sexual stuff, and her outfits in Black Widow. Yeah, they were showing her stuff. But they weren't going overboard. They weren't really showing her stuff, She could have. She wasn't even partially naked. It's freaking Disney, Of course she's not. She was definitely.
Well, there was a big controversy in one of her early appearances as Black Widow, where they actually freaking airbrushed the posters to make her look different than she actually was, and that was a big. I think that was after Disney took over, wasn't it? That was around that time.
All the Hulk is the only Marvel movie that wasn't done by Marvel and Disney.
No. The Hulk actually Hulk came in the wake of Iron Man. Iron Man was the one that started them all.
Yeah. Hulk was out before Iron Man.
Well, no, Hulk came first. The Incredible Hulk.
Incredible Hulk came.
I'm talking about the one that's related to...
Hulk has nothing to do with the MCU. Everyone has made sure of that.
I'm talking about the Hulk that actually is connected to the MCU.
That one came after Iron Man. The Edward Norton one that came about 5 or 6 months later.
Are you sure about that?
Yep. Because Iron Man was definitely the first out of the gate, and actually Hulk makes a nod to Iron Man, if you remember correctly.
Hulk came out just a month later.
The Hulk is.
Maybe it wasn't 5 months later. It was. You're right. It was just a couple months later.
It was all that same. I remember it was the same that same summer.
Because I remember Iron Man came out, I think, a month after Dark Knight.
It
was like
Dark Knight came out. Actually, Dark Knight came out after both.
The Hulk was not is not owned by Marvel.
Yeah, whatever. That's a tangent for another day.
I don't know who owns it, but Marvel.
There's some messed up rights with Hulk. That's crazy.
Well, because Universal had the rights to the Hulk since the 70s.
Yeah.
I wanted to watch all the Marvel movies, and I was going to start with the Hulk because that's what I thought was the first, and I couldn't. Wasn't even on Disney. So
yeah. They have a physical release, but they haven't done much with it.
I looked it up because I'm like, why can't I see the Hulk? Why isn't that not a thing here? And that's when I saw the rights and shit. I'm like, oh, that's screwy. But because
the mouse.
The Hulk was. You think they would just buy the rights? They can afford it.
They've been trying. I mean, you think about it, when you get a valuable IP like that, you're not going to give it up
Some
easily.
people ain't selling it, and
Yeah.
I mean, and
It's-
besides, they've got their own Hulk. Really, if you think
Yeah.
about it, they've got the rights to use that Hulk in the Avengers. So why
Right.
should they have to?
Right. So we've got.
'Cause we want
Although it
Pirates
would be
is,
interesting if we got a return by any of those. But at any rate, and I guess that covered most of the production stuff. So let's go ahead and launch into favorites. Unless anyone has anything else they want to throw out first. Okay. We'll start with you, Forrest. What are your favorite moment, favorite line, favorite character, what have you?
I would say when Gurney defects to the Soviets and he drops the suitcase and he accidentally drops the suitcase when he's trying to hop over to the Soviet sub. Also when Clooney wakes up and finds himself with all those communist writers.
Right. Very cool. All right, Brandon, how about you?
I actually really like the whole communist tea party, essentially, that they're doing. I find that funny that they were doing that with the cucumber sandwiches and so on. I mean, it's an absurdity that I would say that the Coens, only the Coens really would throw out like that.
Right. Very good. How about you, Dave?
I do kind of enjoy the whole waking up to the communist party of the future idea, especially when you got some recognizable characters like the one dude with the white hair. He's from Once Upon a Time. He comes in as the writer in Once Upon a Time. And the guy, like kitty corner from him, he plays the head dude in Hackers. So I recognized him from Hackers back in the early 90s. So,
early 90s. Oh.
Well, yeah, that's when he was going up against Zero Cool. But mess with the best, die like the rest.
Actually, wait a minute. So you're talking Fisher Stevens there, right?
Yeah, he's got short hair now, but he had long hair in that movie.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because he had a god complex going on there too, and he's kind of like one of these god complex people here, where where he's like one of the rebels of the writers community, and I guess I get a kick out of the whole. They give the money to their benefactor, which I guess they don't really say what party they're part of the war with, but I'm assuming definitely the Nazis. But that whole dog scene. Oh, and can't mention once again the George Clooney bitch slapping.
Right. And Dave,
he definitely deserves it for all the bad acting roles he's been in.
Batman.
And Dave Batman. Also.
No, that's the only one that was bad.
With the communists, you forgot the guy that in kind of a nod to a callback to Big Lebowski, the one guy they keep telling to shut up is the guy that played Bernard in the Santa Claus movies. Also is in the Harold and Kumar movies, and Dave Krumholtz.
I still haven't seen the Big Lebowski, so I don't know.
Well, like I said, you know, I know you saw the Santa Claus because we talked about it on the
I
channel.
like that we're covering this Coen movie, yet we haven't covered The Big Lebowski.
We will be hitting The Big Lebowski, I guarantee it. But at any rate, and then Patrick Fischler, of course, who I know I probably originally saw in Mulholland Drive. Which honestly, this is one of the reasons why it doesn't really bother me that this film has little bits that kind of drift off into the ether and don't really do anything. Because again, Gosford Park had that, Mulholland Drive has that.
Yeah, but this
a lot of the great directors do have those little tangents that don't really get wrapped up. I don't hold this to be and again, The Big Lebowski had a few of those tangents in it. There were, you know, most Coen Brothers films do have at least one or two little, like, well, that was weird.
Then I
like
wouldn't call that quite great.
Well, I would with some of them. But you know, like the whole scene with the ex classmate with Marge Gunderson in Fargo, that has always struck me as a weird scene. But you know, it kind of fits. And just but it's anyway. Tammy, your favorites?
Well, of course, I did like the things I brought it up before about the money when he drops the money for the dog. It's like, okay, you're an idiot. And I didn't see anything because everybody else was getting on their thing. I did like it when Clooney got slapped. That was cool. So.
It was.
Okay, so that's it.
All right. How about you, Kroll?
Yeah, I have to agree with everybody. Clooney getting slapped. I mean, I just agree with Dave. I like him acting, except for Batman. So I think he definitely deserved it for his portrayal of Batman. And that was just a funny scene. But I also want to mention that no one else has really mentioned as much. The cowboy Aldrich and
All right. Okay. And I've said before, and I'll say again, that I don't really blame Clooney for that so much as Joel Schumacher.
Blame Joel Schumacher. Blame Warner Brothers.
Yeah, Warner Brothers. Yeah, that's bigger. That's the bigger problem. Warner Brothers screwing with their films for merchandising.
Clooney.
I still say if they wanted to go Adam West camp, Clooney could have been the best choice, but yeah, they got in the way of that. But at any rate, and we lost Cole. I guess he'll probably be backstage in just a moment.
Yeah, those of you who know me, Clooney, Kilmer, and Broderick are on my shit list. So
wait, Clooney, Kilmer, and who was the third one?
Broderick.
Oh, Matthew Broderick.
I would say Matthew Broderick. I would say.
Well, let's hope we never have a Broderick Batman.
Let's hope we never have another live Christmas Story catastrophe.
I mean, is that really? I mean, was that live Christmas Story really his fault though?
Yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, again, I'm going to say, bar none, my favorite scene is definitely the scene between Hobie Doyle and Lawrence Lawrence. That scene just cracked me up. I do love some of the other scenes. Yes, Clooney getting bitch slapped, enjoy that. And some of the scenes with Scarlett Johansson, I think I got more enjoyment out of that this time around than before. I do love the No Dames dance number. I think that's pretty fun. But yeah, that scene between Hobie and Lawrence, that's just that was gold for me. So, and then the callback to it in the when Mannix is watching the dailies and you see that he just says it's complicated. I just thought that was great. But anyway,
did you guys hear everything I said? No.
I think we did.
I was mentioning the my alarm went off and cut me off, so I wasn't sure. I was still talking, but I wasn't sure if it went through. I did talk about the Lorenz and and the actor with that scene. Did you guys hear that?
I think you started talking about the cowboy again, and that was the last I heard.
Okay, yeah, I was saying that scene that you just said is
Okay.
it was definitely funny. That was probably my second. That and like I said, the George Clooney were my two favorites. So I did bring that up. So I just wanted to make sure everyone heard that. I wasn't sure if it I couldn't hear anything anymore. My alarm goes off. I keep forgetting to shut it off when we do the podcast. Alarm goes off or something, and I always forget to shut it off, and it cuts me off every time. I don't know why. It's annoying.
Yeah, technology, huh?
Yeah. Sometimes not so great.
Right. So, I guess unless anyone has any final thoughts, we got this one pretty well wrapped up. Or any? Okay. Cool. So, I guess Forrest, you said you had to duck.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to do a quick outro or?
Well, I'm Forrest Bennett. I'm a independent film producer and occasional actor and YouTuber based in Long Island, New York. I have you can find me on my YouTube channel Forrest B Bennett, where I talk about movie pickups, trailer reactions, and I recently did a double feature review of the new Screaming Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies with our friend Mo.
Okay.
And I've always got something going on in the pipeline.
Okay.
You can also find me on Instagram where I show off my latest comic book pickups under my
Very cool. Cool. Brandon, you were trying to get something in?
Oh no! I mean, with luck, will be with us for our next film.
Right. With luck. And so our next film on the main channel, Movies Galore, we're going to be talking about the Wes Anderson film Grand Budapest Hotel. So join us for that. All right.
Most definitely.
Yeah. All right, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.